In level 3, we now have to do a little bit more than just take a GCF out to factor. This is going to go back to our skills that we perfected in Unit 9B when we were factoring trinomials. Level 3 will have every trinomial where a is equal to 1, but the process remains the same. Remember, when we are putting in a standard form of a quadratic, we have ax squared plus bx plus c. That means that a is attached to the x squared term, b is attached to the x term, and c is the constant, the term that doesn't have a variable. And we have to make sure that all of our equations are set equal to 0 before we are able to solve them. As you are doing this, make sure that your x squared term is always positive, no matter what. So when I set off to solve example 1a to make it equal 0, x squared is already positive, so I want to make sure I leave that exactly where it is. And instead, I will add 10x, or sorry, just 10 to both sides, giving me x squared plus 7x plus 10 equals 0. Now that my equation is set equal to 0, I can start factoring. I know I have to factor because I don't see a set of parentheses and I still have an exponent here. The first step in all factoring is there a GCF? Which in this case there is not. Since there are 3 terms, that is a wonderful indicator that we are going to have to list our A, our B, and our C. So A in this case will be 1, B is 7, and C is 10. When you list out your A, B, and C, you're going to be doing your X with your box to factor. So we need to know what is A times C, which in this case is 10. And our X would be 10 on top, and our bottom of our X would be 7. So let's list out the factors of 10. 1 and 10, 2 and 5. When we talk signs, the last number is positive, so I can use 2 positives or 2 negatives. And the middle term is positive, so I have to use 2 positives. So I have 2 and 5. So when I draw my box, the first term, which was x squared, will go in the first box. The last term, which was 10, will go in the last box. And then 2 and 5 will be in these final 2 boxes with an x behind them. Now remember that these 2 diagonal boxes always indicate whether you'll take out a positive or a negative for your term. If these are positive, you'll always take a positive number out. If they are negative, you'll have to take a negative number out. The reason for this is just like our x squared term, our first term, our x's, are always positive. So what can I take out? What is the GCF of x squared and 5x? I can take an x out. What is the GCF of 2x and 10? I can take a 2 out. What's the GCF of x squared and 2x? I can take x out. GCF of 5x and 10 is just 5. So my factors are x plus 5 and x plus 2. Now in Unit 9b, we'd put parentheses around them and we'd be done. But the directions have asked us to solve these. So we need to set each one equal to 0. So we'll subtract 5 from both sides and get x is equal to negative 5. Then we'll subtract 2 from both sides and get that x is also equal to negative 2. And we need to have both of those for our answer. Let's try example 1b. Our x squared term is already positive, so I'm going to leave it exactly where it is, but I'll need to add 3 to both sides, giving me 0 is equal to x squared minus 4x plus 3. Now we can list out what a is, b, and c. A is 1, B is -4, and C is 3. So A times C gives me 3 as well. So my x will be 3 on top and then -4 on the bottom. The factors of 3 are 1 and 3. And if we look at our signs, the sign of the last number is positive, so I can have 2 positives or 2 negatives. The sign of the middle number is negative, so I have to use 2 negatives if I want them to add together to be -4. -1 and -3 are my factors. We'll draw our box. And in the first box, we'll have x squared, our first term. In the last box, we'll have 3. That's our last term. And -1x and -3x will make up our final 2 boxes. Now, because those are both negative, that means that whatever GCF I take out of the bottom and the right will also be negative. Remember, our first terms are always positive. So what can come out of this top row? Just x. Out of the bottom row, -3. The left side, just x. And the right side, -1. We'll write our factors. Oops, we don't need the parentheses because we're solving. We're going to set each factor equal to 0. So x minus 1 equals 0 and x minus 3 equals 0. Add 1 to both sides and x is equal to 1. For this one, we'll add 3 to both sides. So x will equal 3. Both of them are our solutions, and we need to include both. Let's take a look at example 2a. For this example, my x squared is still positive, so I'll need to add 5x to both sides. Now that 5x represents a bx term, so when I go to rewrite my problem, I always want to rewrite it in descending order, which follows the ax squared plus bx minus 24. Oops, I need to change that b to 5. Look for a GCF, but there isn't one. So A is equal to, B is equal to, and C is equal to. A is 1, B is 5, and C is -24. A times C equals -24. So in our X, we have -24 on the top, and our B value is on the bottom. Let's set our factors of 24. 1 and 24, 2 and 12, 3 and 8, 4 and 6. The sign of our last number is negative, so 1 positive and 1 negative are my signs. But the sign of the middle number is positive, so that means I want my larger factor in each pair to be positive, and my smaller factor will be negative. That means that -3 and 8 are the ones that will add together to be +5. We'll draw our box. And our first term will be in our first box. Our last term will be in our last box. And our last 2 boxes, which tell me the signs of the numbers I'm taking out, will be -3x, which means I'll take a negative out of this one. And on the right, I'll put 8x, which means I'll be taking a positive out. What comes out of the top is x. What comes out of the bottom? -3. What about the left side? We have x, and the right side, we have 8. So we have x plus 8 equals 0, and x minus 3 equals 0. Subtract 8 from both sides, and we'll have x is equal to negative 8. Add 3 to both sides, and x will equal positive 3. Include both as your answers. In order to get x squared, well, to make the equation equal 0, over here we'll need to move the 6x. We don't want to move anything else because the x squared is already positive. So we'll subtract 6x, which remember is our b term, meaning it's going to need to be in the middle if we were to write this in ax squared plus bx plus c form, or standard form for a quadratic. So x squared minus 6x minus 16 equals 0. A is 1, B is negative 6, and C is negative 16. So A times C equals negative 16. So our x would be negative 16 on top, and the bottom would be negative 6. The factors of negative 16. We have 1 and 16, 2 and 8, 4 and 4. The sign of the last number is negative, so I can have 1 positive and 1 negative. The sign of the middle number is also negative, so we want the larger factor to be negative. The smaller factor will remain positive. 2 and negative 8 give me negative 6. So we'll draw our box. X squared going in the first spot, negative 16 going in the last spot. And we'll have negative 8x, which will mean the right side on my box will be negative, and 2x on the bottom, which will mean that the bottom will take out a positive. What can come out of the top? X. The bottom, positive 2. The left side, I can take x, and the right side, I can take a negative 8. X minus 8 equals 0, and we'll have x plus 2 equals 0. Add 8 to both sides, giving us x equals 8. Subtract 2 from both sides, giving us x is equal to negative 2. Include both as your answers. For example 3a and 3b, we have to consider moving the x squared term. In this case, I do want to move the x squared term because it is negative. So we'll add x squared to both sides, leaving us 0 is equal to x squared goes first, then negative 8x, then 12. A would equal 1, B would equal negative 8, and C is 12. A times C equals 12. So in our x, 12 would be on top, and the negative 8 would be on the bottom. Factors of 12, 1 and 12, 2 and 6, 3 and 4. Let's talk signs. The sign of my last number is positive. The sign of the middle number is negative. So that means 2 negatives. Negative 2 and negative 6 are my factors. We'll draw our box. First term, first box. Last term, last box. And then negative 2x and negative 6x will go in the final boxes. What can come out of the top? X. What can come out of the bottom? A negative 2. The left side, I can take x, And the right side, both negative 6x and 12 can be divided by negative 6. So x minus 6 will equal 0, and our other factor will be x minus 2, and we'll set it equal to 0. Add 6 to both sides, and x equals 6. Add 2 to both sides, and x equals 2. Both are my solutions. Let's try one more. Now it may look very easy to just try to subtract this x squared from both sides, but that would make this x squared term negative, and we want to always keep x squared as positive. So instead, we're going to move the 5x and the negative 6. To move 5x, we would subtract 5x from both sides. And to move 6, we would add 6 to both sides, leaving us 0 equals x squared minus 5x plus 6. List out A, B, and C because there's no GCF. A is 1, B is negative 5, and C as 6. A times C gives me 6, so my x would have 6 on top and negative 5 on the bottom. Factors of 6, 1 and 6, 2 and 3. For our signs, we have the last number is positive, so plus plus or minus minus. The middle number is negative, so I want to use minus minus. Negative 2 and negative 3 are the ones that work. So we'll draw our box, putting x squared in the first box as the first term. And then 6 would be the last term, so it goes in the last box. And negative 2x and negative 3x would be our last two boxes. What can come out of the top row? Just x. Out of the bottom row, negative 3. The left side, an x, and the right side, negative 2. So I have x minus 2 equals 0 and x minus 3 equals 0. Add 2 to both sides, so x will equal 2. Add 3 to both sides, and x is equal to 3. Include both as your answers.